This Airbags network of Global Goals for Cities podcast series will deep dive into topics selected by the city partners to show how the SDGs link to concrete challenges. We have 10 episodes from 10 different European cities plus one bonus episode, all bringing different local expertise. We've made them available with subtitles so that everyone can enjoy the knowledge, and each and every one of them is valuable to see and hear. Enjoy and let us know what you think in the comment sections below, and don't forget to hit the like button and share with your friends and colleagues. Hello, this is Denik from Ihola.
Hi, I'm Karin from Tallinn, and this is our Global Goals for Cities project. Upcoming episode takes us back to COP26, which we all know was held in one of our partner cities, Glasgow. COP was an opportunity for Glasgow where they had all eyes on them, an opportunity to showcase and raise importance of gender equality in the city.
I've learned how important it is for women to have a place in a society. It is utterly small things, but very essential to remember, especially for young women. From the girls' stories, you can hear their sense of empowerment from being able to participate in such a high-level event.
The Girls at COP project especially contributed to end discrimination, ensure full and effective participation and equal opportunities.
It also led to initiatives by young women themselves, such as cultural events in schools. In that sense, COP was acting as a catalyst, since the city continues to organize events for SDG 5, including Women for Climate Forum, which brings a reminder that this is a continuation, not just one thing.
It's so important to have representation. Women out there can truly show what we women are made of. So sorry, Stenek, but woohoo, go women!
For a number of reasons, it's very important that we listen to female voices. There has always, and unfortunately still to this day, there is a lack of representation of women in many different areas, whether that be the public or the private sector. When it comes to climate change affects men and women very differently, and that can come down to a number of factors. Geography, where they're living in the world and where women are tasked with different duties from men. There's socio-economic reasons that can happen in most countries across the globe. So during our COP at 26 conference, and I must say Girls at COP 26 because that was the name and that was the focus, we wanted our young women to be heard. We also wanted them to engage with women a little bit older who had experience, who had faced many trials and tribulations in their life, but were experts and leaders in their own particular field. So although there's challenges for women still across the globe, whether that be through climate change or economic reasons, there is also opportunity and possibility, and that was the main message we wanted to get across to our young women attending our conference. And there's also a lack of female representation in politics and in policy making. So again, it was important that these girls got involved in the conversation to let them see quite clearly that this is as much their world as it is, the boys they're sitting with in school, and they can make the changes just as much as they can.
So in involving an event like COP26, it was very challenging. I think the key to an event like Girls at COP26 was the planning, and the planning went on for months and months and months, way before the actual COP event itself. So initially we had to first of all contact all of our secondary schools to make them aware that the event was happening and the logistics involved in that particular event. So for example, we would require a large number of staff to be available. We would require a large number of transport because of the number of children who would be attending. So it was to make staff aware of what was happening. And I think crucially for us, it was also about making staff aware of why we were doing this, what was the focal point of it, and educating first of all our head teachers, but obviously then going on to further provide our young people with resource packs that would prepare them for the event, to show them why SDG 5 was such a focus for us and why Girls at COP event was so significant. For us in education, it was the real landmark event of COP26, you know, our work with the Glasgow Caledonian University. So it was really important there was an awareness of what we were doing and why we were doing it. In terms of the planning, it was also about ensuring that the communication channels were open to the staff that were involved. So for example, you would contact the head teacher, but quite often the head teacher understandably has numerous responsibilities within the school, and the responsibility for an event like this would be delegated perhaps to the deputy head teacher who had responsibility for that particular year group. So channels of communication were very, very important for that particular event, and making sure your communication got to the correct places. It was also about ensuring that the infrastructure was in place, so contacting bus companies early to alert them to, you know, the number of buses that we would need, because obviously because of the COP event itself, there was going to be a large demand on their services because of all the other events across, you know, the blue zone, the green zone, transportation of, you know, various delegations across the city. So this was very, very important to us as well. So I think making sure that information and communication was, you know, at the forefront of what we were doing in terms of our planning. One of the key things was to make the event very much fun for our young women who were attending. So one of the ways in which we achieved that was incorporating Bonnie the Seal. Now, Bonnie the Seal was a mascot that we upcycled from the 2018 European Games, and this was something that we thought was really important because it gave that resounding message that although Bonnie was used as a mascot in 2018, it doesn't mean she was discarded. You know, she was very much used and upcycled as part of that symbol for the women who were present at the event, but also all across the city. You know, and Bonnie did a tour of the city. You know, she visited lots of primary schools to make sure they knew what was happening in Glasgow, you know, during the 2 weeks of COP as well for our young women. In addition to that, we also created a series of goodie bags for the girls to take away with them. And for the girls, it was very, very important that they had something physical, you know, to take away as a representation of their day. And they included, obviously, a bag that was recycled with a very clear message from Mary Robinson herself, and about the solution being feminist. And this message was emblazoned on the bags to remind them of their day. But also, in addition to that, there was a partnership with Hey Girls around period poverty, and we felt that was really, really important to make sure the girls were able to make connections between all of those things, you know, that we hold very, very important in Glasgow.
I think it's important so like women know like they have a place in society and they have a voice and they can say stuff and they can be listened to, and it really helped, like me especially, it helped me feel like I can say something, I can make a change. And yeah, it was a small thing but it helped a lot.
As you can imagine, with an operation of this size, there were many challenges that we would face as a city. The first one was around transport. So transport was a real challenge for us in Glasgow because, number one, you know, we don't have an infinite supply of buses, so this finite supply had to be used to support our transportation for their young people to get into the city, but also it had to support the movement of the delegation around the COP campus from, you know, their various accommodations across Scotland in some cases. So, you know, it was about making sure there was appropriate infrastructure in place to support that. So early, you know, conversations with the bus companies to ensure availability was very, very important to us. Transport was also a factor around the road closures. Because of the nature of security around COP, there were a great number of road closures around the city. The road closures around the city were very, very important in terms of understanding the routes that were available to us and allowing the planning. And I can't emphasise that enough, really, that the planning was a really crucial part of that. Where we knew there was going to be road closures, you can then mitigate against what that's, you know, going to be about and how you can plan around that. So I think, again, the planning is very much around the centre of that. So transport in and around itself was a real challenge. That compounded with COVID-19 restrictions. Now, I think we need to remember as well that during COP26, we were still very much in the middle of a pandemic, and the restrictions that were in place were very, very significant in terms of large number of crowds gathering, in terms of mask wearing, all the barriers really that you wouldn't want as part of, you know, a celebration of such an event, you know, because you've got face coverings, you know, you can't read people's expressions. So For us, certainly, it was articulating to the young women how we were feeling without them seeing our faces. And for us, that was a real barrier. You know, we wanted to make sure that they felt welcome. How did we do that with masks on? You know, so there was a real warmth. And one of the things we did to kind of overcome that was have a photo booth. Now, photo booths, you know, they're there for the young women to enjoy and to have a good time. But what we did feel was that it would break the tension, you know, and it would relax the girls. They would enjoy having pictures with their friends, you know, with these other young women who were there for the same purpose, and they were able to put little emojis on them and personalise them. And that was one of the ways in which we tried to break down those barriers and overcome those challenges. I suppose the final challenge that I would think about as well is the staff implications. When you're taking 2,500 women out of Glasgow schools, then there's a whole bunch of other kids still waiting to be taught by their teachers. So it's really, really important that, again, you utilise all the staff that are available to you. So not just thinking about your teachers, thinking about your support workers, other women in your school who may be interested in attending, other men in your school who may be interested in attending, and that was very much part of that as well, you know. And we did have a number of men come along on that day and support what was happening with the young women, and I think that's very important to emphasise as well. So while there were challenges, we did see them as opportunities, because you have to have that attitude going into planning something like this. It was really important that because we were organised, we anticipated what the challenges were, we were able to overcome them and try and redress the balance to ensure that the young women who attended had a very positive experience.
It felt very inviting. I enjoyed it overall. They invited me and my classmates to Caledonian University. We arrived there. The hostess that was speaking there, they had shed light on the experiences in the society they have as a woman. Great speakers. One of them, I remember her name was Frankie, if I'm not sure, and she was explaining her representation as an Indigenous woman, and I realised there's so much more about being a woman other than just your gender, and it's more than where you come from and how culture ties into everything. And the speakers there, for example, one of my classmates, they were really interactive with everything, with drawed posters on it, and they were asking very keen questions on the entire topic, and overall it was great.
There were so many highlights as part of the 2-week programme that we had. I think for me personally, when I look at the highlights, what I particularly got from it, I had the privilege of attending every day, so I got to hear from women all over the world in so many different genres and so many different, you know, areas. It was just absolutely incredible to listen to their stories and to hear what they had to say. And actually some local women that I had never really met before, women from Glasgow, women from across Scotland, and indeed the wider world. So for me it was listening to those women, listening to their stories and understanding why they wanted to be part of this event and what they contributed to that and what the young women would get from that as well. It was truly inspiring to listen to them. But I suppose the follow-on from that was what I got to hear the young women say in response to it. So when the panel would speak, they would obviously share their stories, their journeys, about where they had been, their story, where they had come from. And what I found was that the questions the young women asked were so insightful and so profound in so many ways that in itself was inspiring. And there was a beautiful demonstration of that actually on our tablecloths. We decided that our tablecloths would be a way for the young people to express themselves. So every day the tablecloths were changed, and every young woman who came in sat at their seat and had the opportunity to personalise their table cover and share their thoughts and their feelings about what they were seeing, what they were hearing. And I think if I had one tip, it would be to try and replicate that, because there's never been a more beautiful demonstration of pupil voice, in my opinion, because some of the artwork that was created, the artwork was outstanding, but actually just the ingenuity, the imagination and the questions that were answered were very, very insightful and very profound in so many ways, and demonstrated a real desire for this to be the beginning of a journey, not the end.
My highlights is just that we had like this cloth and you could like write your ideas on it, and during that you could like literally write wherever. So there was like a PowerPoint and you could write what you wanted, and at the end like you could see everyone else's like mat and what they had wrote, and it was just so many different things, and there was like 6 of them and it was all so different.
What I feel with COP26 was that it was a catalyst, really, a way to stimulate that conversation for our young women. we have had a number of events since COP26 to support the work that we're doing in Glasgow around SDG 5. So for example, we've been looking at 100 days from COP. So in Glasgow we had an anniversary, 100 days from COP, where we got to celebrate everything that was achieved, including the work of the young women who were involved. And at that event we laid the foundations for International Women's Day, where again we got to break the bias and very much celebrate that, you know. So I feel as though there has been a constant reminder to our young women that actually this is something, it wasn't a flash in the pan, it's not going anywhere, this is something that actually has a real ingrained legacy in it.
So I'm setting up a culture day for our school, probably around September. And I was inspired by the young women that were there, because they had said, take forward, like, you know, do your thing, like you have to step up in your community. And I found great inspiration in all of that. And I thought it was a fantastic idea to embrace myself as the leading woman of this program that I'm setting up, and as a person of colour as well. So I was like, you know what, I'll just go for it and I'll start doing this. And that was my key highlight, because I found out that behind every great business and organisation there's a backbone, which is a woman. So there we go.
So there has been a real legacy in Glasgow about what happened, you know, from COP, and I feel as though it was very much the start of the journey. Many of our schools had already been doing great work around learning for sustainability, and this was very much, you know, an accelerant for that. And I feel as though it energised our curriculum once again for our young women to be thinking about that. I'm also delighted to announce that this month, in June of 2022, we are assembling a Young Women's Forum. Now, it won't be called that, they are going to come up with a name, but what we have is 2 representatives from every secondary school in the city who will be given fairly intensive training over the next 3 years, and they will then go back to their schools and take forward the work. And again, I think the power of that forum will be in the sharing of ideas, just like we did at COP. And ultimately this programme will lead into the Women for Climate programme with the C40 cities. So we're really excited about that, you know, real connection that we will still have, and I suppose the succession planning around Women for Climate and building towards that programme for our young women of the future as well. So there's a real coherence around our plans for the future and how we will be taking that forward.
Different, because usually you don't really get events like that. Like, that was a first for me, and I'm sure it was a first for everyone in that room. Like, you don't really see events like this, and you don't really see people pushing women forward to, like, make their voices heard and stuff.
It was a chance to showcase our city to the world. You know, the eyes of the world were upon our city, and I really feel as though it was too good an opportunity to miss. That's genuinely how we felt about it, and we wanted to show the world, you know, all our visitors, how sophisticated and talented our young women were. So for us, it was certainly too good an opportunity to miss. We had so many creative and inspiring young women that, you know, it would have been a shame not to involve them in such a magnificent event in their city. And we wanted to encourage our young women to think not just about our local priorities as Glaswegians, but also to think about our national priorities as Scottish women, and also our international, you know, priorities as well as global citizens. And I suppose finally for me, whenever I think about why it was important to have an event like this in Glasgow, Mary Robinson actually summarised it beautifully when she said that our young people can lead and our older people can listen. And I think that for me really captured why it was important to have an event like that in our city. Our young people are natural leaders. They are so inspired, so innovative, that, you know, it would be a terrible shame not to have them lead from the front in this particular occasion.
I think it's important to have representation, like to show that women out there, that there is support for young women out there, like to show that we exist and that we're here to speak on issues that there are in our country and worldwide. And that young girls like me, we need to be more focused on trying to make a move forward and progressing in society. And if we have events like this, it brings more a conclusive group of people to come together and create change.